Hi and welcome. I'm Lindsay Shaw, Corporate Finance Director at Brown Butler, and I'm here to talk to you today about acquisition strategy and if it's right for your business. I saw this quote and I thought it summed up quite well what I was trying to say in this presentation. So that no company can afford not to move forward. If you do, you will just die. Everybody needs to move forward. And acquisition is a great way to keep moving and growing. As an advisor, most business owners I speak to have growth as a key strategy. Acquisition can be a great way to grow your business. It allows for faster growth, can usually be achieved organically. Acquisition strategy. It's really important to have a well thought out acquisition strategy. It's something that can be referred to throughout the whole deal process to ensure that key objectives are being met by the acquisition and that you're not getting caught up in deal fever, which, believe me, is a very real thing. The acquisition strategy keeps you focused on what you were trying to achieve at the beginning. So, some key components of an acquisition strategy. Why? Why is the acquisition the right route for your business? Are you looking for pure financial gain, a totally acceptable strategy, or is there a more strategic reason, acquiring top talent or some market-leading IP? What are the key components that you're looking for? Is geography important? People, market share, profit, cash generation? It's important to understand what it is you're trying to achieve and the best way to achieve that. When is the right time? Is your business highly seasonal? Is there a quieter time in the business cycle when you can deal with the acquisition and post-acquisition integration? Doing an acquisition is very time-consuming for any management team, so this needs to be thought about carefully. Also, funding. When will it be the best financially for your company? Are you about to take on a big investment project? If so, doing an acquisition is probably best to wait until you've settled the investment project. Finally, utopia. Think about what the perfect acquisition target would look like, and then think about the parts of the perfect target that you would not be willing to compromise on. In my experience, the perfect target rarely exists or is available at the right price, so some compromise will be needed. Once you have set your acquisition target, make sure that your deal team, those involved in finding and completing the acquisition, both internal and external to the company, have full buy-in to the strategy. It's important that everybody understands what is trying to be achieved here so that everybody's on the same page. When an acquisition works. Acquisitions are only successful when done for the right reasons. It can take years to find the right acquisition target, and even then, the deal may never come to fruition. It is easy to get frustrated and settle for a target that doesn't fulfill your acquisition strategy. This is when an acquisition is more likely to fail. Some key strategic reasons for making an acquisition are as follows. It fills a gap in your existing business's product or service offering. So it's a great strategic fit. Allows expansion into new territories or market areas. A way to acquire top talent or intellectual property. It can be a speedy way to do this rather than cultivating your own. Also, investing in intellectual property can be expensive and time-consuming. Offers cost and/or revenue synergies. These are highly important in any acquisition. If you're buying a company that has very similar overheads to yourself, then there's lots of synergies that can be made to increase profitability for both parts. Saves time and potentially costly learning curves. These are all things that should be looked at to make a positive acquisition and make sure that an acquisition is going to be successful. I have previously mentioned acquisitions failing, and doing an acquisition is by no means easy. Doing an acquisition is a fraught process. Also, integrating an acquisition into an existing business can also be very difficult. You need to ensure that you've got the time and capability to dedicate to integration post-acquisition to ensure that it doesn't fail. Some reasons why an acquisition may fail. You have overpaid. This is usually as a result of not doing enough due diligence on the target and thinking that the business is something that it isn't. It's easy to miss things when you get deal fever. and you focus on getting the deal done rather than the process. Culture clash. Culture is an extremely important factor when trying to integrate two different businesses. It's one of the main reasons that acquisitions fail. It's important to focus on the culture of both businesses and try to come to a compromise and ensure that all staff are on board and don't feel like it's being enforced upon them. Loss of competitive advantage. By making the acquisition, key stakeholders have become confused about the business's identity and where they sit in the market. Again, if you refer back to your acquisition strategy, hopefully this one won't happen. The acquisition process was a major distraction. Whilst concentrated on completing the acquisition, key management took their eye off the ball and their existing business started to decline. So now there is an integration of the new acquisition to deal with, as well as trying to stop the decline in the existing business. As I've previously mentioned, doing an acquisition is time consuming and can take management away from the everyday running of the business. This is why it's important to get proper advice. Underfunded. Acquisitions can take time to show a financial return, especially if there are cost synergies to be made. It's important that any acquisition is properly forecast and funded to ensure that acquiring business can cope with the extra financial burden. Again, this is why it's incredibly important anybody looking to do an acquisition gets proper advice from people who are used to doing these things and can help with all the integration issues that you may come across. Hopefully that has given you a little insight into acquisition strategy and whether it might be right for you. If you have anything that you want to talk about or any questions about anything that we've spoken about today, please feel free to get in touch. My contact details are there. Thank you. Goodbye.